Tokyo Rave.
But I ain't no another night, another dream, but always you. Is that your vision of love that seems to be true? Another night, another dream, but always you. In the night, I dream of a love so true. Be patient. Be patient. Be patient. Be patient.
Well, this is still part of the video about why I wanted to go to Japan and what I had to do. And this is the part where I explain what I had to do to be able to go to Japan for 2 years. And this is probably one of the most interesting videos because it's just for me personally, when I started the whole paperwork, I did not really know what to expect, and I didn't really have an idea of what was going on or what was going to happen, because I always heard that it's difficult to be accepted to go to Japan, a lot of paperwork, but I had no idea what to expect. Now that I have had that experience, I wanted to share that with you guys to create an image to know what kind of things you have to do when you want to go to Japan also. It's quite a lot, so I had to write it down, and we will go through these things step by step. And this all started probably around January. Now, as I said, there were two options. There were either a university I could go to or a language school. Both had positive points and negative points. The thing is, with a university, is much more prestigious, and it opens a lot of doors when you have on your resume that I attended that and that so-and-so university. However, I looked up, and the universities in Japan, in Tokyo, don't have all that great of language courses. For example, the Tokyo University, Todai, which is the best university in all of Japan, has a really bad language course. On the site it said that the amount of homework is minimal and that it's even doable for the most busiest students. So it's more a thing to do with your own actual study. Now, this doesn't of course mean that the university is bad, because it has such a good reputation, but just that branch of the Japanese language education is pretty bad there. I also saw this with a few other universities, and finally I found a university where I had 10 hours a week, which was okay. However, the thing is, with a language school, you have 20 hours a week, which is far more, and your language skills would improve so much better if you would attend a language school than a university. Because, like I said, the universities there also have that method of you working really at home, and the language school also has that, but 4 hours a day of you practicing Japanese will do miracles. I think. It's just a theory, but on paper the language school is better. However, it's not as prestigious as a university, and it doesn't open a great amount of doors for your future, for a job or something. However, I did some research, and I found a few language schools. I found Kai, I found something, I think it was called ABC Tokyo, and I found Naganuma School. And Naganuma School had actually a very good reputation. It had very good reviews from the government itself, governmental support, and it also has connections actually with my university here. and the reviews on it were absolutely fantastic. However, it was noted that it was actually very difficult to get in there. Why? I will come to that in a bit. The thing is, I first wanted to try a university because it would open a lot more doors in the future to to have on my resume. And the things that I had to do were the following. I had to collect data to send to the university so that then they could review my information. And that information consisted of grade lists of your of all your schools. So elementary school, high school, if you've been to university, that kind of thing. And if it would be in another language than, say, English or Japanese, you would have to translate it and have someone stamp that translation so that to prove that the translation is accurate. Now, in Holland, that is not such a big deal because Holland is a very small country. So traveling to your or your high school and elementary school is not that big of a problem. But let's say you live in America, that could be a very big problem, and a very frustrating thing to drive or even fly around the country to get your grades from university or high school or stuff like that. Another thing that I had to do, because the information that you need to gather obviously differ from different schools, different university, but for the university I had to write a motivation letter in Japanese. And I also had to hand in a letter written by a teacher of either my high school or my university in Japanese. So actually, if the high school teacher only could do it in English, you had to find someone who actually could write Japanese to translate it, and also have a stamp on that to verify the accurate translation. Obviously bank information, because it costs a lot. Of course, also a health pledge letter, so a letter written by yourself concerning your health. So if you have any disorders or stuff like that, you need to write that down. And also a letter from the doctor, which of course also needs a stamp, and you also need to have your date of the vaccines that you got, which was actually a bit of a problem for me, because I had written down in a book which vaccines I got, but not on what date. So I had to call the government, and they sent me to another company that has all that information, and I had to call them to get the dates for the vaccines that I received. So you have to realize that doing all that, really drains your energy, and really motivates you to drink alcohol a lot while on the job of gathering information. A few friends of mine are actually going to the university in Nagasaki, and they actually had to do a blood test. I did not have to do that for the university. And there were still a few other things. However, there were some issues with the information that I sent, because they said that when you would send your information, it would take a few months before they would send you the results. And they indeed go over all your information and call your high school, your university, stuff like that, what you visited, to verify all the information. So, don't think that you can just lie a little bit, because they will check everything, and if something is not right, they will refuse your application. But I did not come through, which was a bit of a letdown, especially because of course I had a plan B, which was a language school. And like I said, I wanted to go to the Naganuma language school because it had such a good reputation. However, the date for the deadline for sending in your application to go to that school was also around the date that I was actually was before the date that I received the information of the results for application at the university. However, I contacted the language school after I got the results of the university, and I was lucky that because of the earthquake that happened in March, a lot less applicants were there, and it was even the case that they needed more, so they extended the deadline, and I was still able to hand in my applications. Now, the applications that they needed, the papers, had to be 2 or 3 months and not older, which meant that I had to do all of the paperwork over again and get all the new stamps and something like that. And a good thing was that I had all the English translations of my grade list. I already had that because I had to type them out in January when I made those lists to go to the university. However, I had to go to the university again, to the high school again, elementary school again, to get those stamps. Get a new stamp from the house doctor, stuff like that, and it was very tiring. And the major thing that was different about this school is that you needed a Japanese guarantor, which means that you needed someone in Japan who has a steady job, who is responsible for you, and who they can contact you, the school can contact when something is concerning you. Probably because of that, it is so difficult to go to Naganuma school, because if you don't know anyone in Japan personally, you are not able to go to Naganuma school. Luckily, my mother has works at the airport, so she knows a few Japanese flight attendants, and we talked to one of her colleagues, Japanese colleagues, and she confirmed that she could be my guarantor. But a reason why we needed a guarantor, we asked the Naganuma school, is so that they can check in with that Japanese guarantor if I was a good person or a bad person. This was literally the words that the spokesperson for Naganuma school said, to check if I was a good person or a bad person. So they, will probably trust a Japanese over a foreigner any day. But also a thing why they wanted a Japanese guarantor is because all these documents are only for acceptance of the school and a letter of eligibility. And if the government gives you the letter of eligibility, it is sent to your Japanese guarantor, and the Japanese guarantor sends it to your home, so here in Holland. And with that letter of eligibility, you need to go to the embassy in your country, and then you are able to get the visa, and then you can go to Japan. So it takes very long to do all that. And it is so tiring, and it even became more tiring because I was talking about that Japanese colleague. She actually got refused by the school because for her work, she needs to fly around 3 or 4 times a month, and that means that she is not there in Japan quite often, so that they cannot contact them or that person. But luckily, the colleague knew a Japanese family, an older family actually, so a cute couple of grandpa and grandma, and they were guarantors for other people who went to that school in the past. So they agreed to be my guarantor, even though I've never met them and I only saw pictures of them. I had mail contact with them, which was very nice, and through that, I am now able, to go to Japan and to study there for 2 years. and I wish you guys the best of luck if you also are trying to go to Japan through this visa. And I will see you guys next time. See ya.